Hey everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. Today we are going to be talking about love, specifically how you get love. We're going to be talking to author, speaker, and coach of world changers, Kimberley Heart. So welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
So I wanted to talk to you about this incredible book where you reveal so much of yourself through these love letters that you're writing with another gentleman. And it's an amazing that this happens over, a 30-day period, is that right?
Yes.
And it's almost like a huge revelation. I mean, you had a huge revelation. When you look back, does it feel like that for you?
It does. I didn't even set out to write the book. I set out to write the book about what I do for a living, which is to mentor maverick leaders. And I sat down to talk about what it is like to be a woman in a world full of powerful men.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what came out. What came out is a love book, which is in two sections. The first is a very revealing look into a love in process, from beginning to what we won't tell you happens. That is how I divulge. I am exceedingly vulnerable in that. And the second half of the book is, okay, let's sit down at the kitchen table and let's figure out how you can have the love you want. How can you handcraft your love life? Here are the steps.
Okay, now there's a ton of, and previous to your coaching experience, you were a couples therapist. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you have lots of experience about love, not only your own personal experience, but then the experience that you had as a couples therapist. And I wanted to talk to you both about the book, and then if you can put your couples therapist hat on as well.
Sure.
Because I think that it's really hard during Valentine's Day in particular, because if we're with someone, we probably have issues. If we're not with someone, we have issues. And the issues, it seems, that folks have are, well, why am I not with someone? What's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? And I was wondering if you could address that first and foremost for folks out there who may be having a hard time during Valentine's Day.
Absolutely. Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day can be one of the most brutal holidays of all, because Madison Avenue tells us what love should be like and how we should be. And when we don't fit the pictures, we start saying, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? Why doesn't anyone love me? I must not be lovable. And it's way too painful. Life was never meant to be this painful.
Mm-hmm. So you think it's really just about the marketing hype about love, that we feel a little bit lonely?
Well, a lot lonely. I think there is a pandemic of loneliness in our world, and I think there are two major holidays that bring that up: New Year's Eve and Valentine's Day.
Mm-hmm.
And many relationships break up right before and right after those two holidays, because they're what we call the holidays of expectation.
Yes.
If up to that point the relationship has not reached the expectation of what you thought it would be, many people who are in the process of thinking about breaking up then just throw their hands out and say, that's it, I'm done, I'm out.
Yeah.
And for those who haven't yet created the relationship that they want, Valentine's Day is a reminder that, quote unquote, there's something wrong with me, no one loves me, which of course is not the truth.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think is really interesting that comes out of your correspondence and your love letters with this gentleman is that you talk about how you had this huge insight about love, and how oftentimes when we are falling in love, we're falling in love with someone who we feel can fill our lack. Tell us a little bit about what that is.
Well, when I went into this love relationship with Adam, we threw ourselves in heart first. There was no pussyfooting around. There was no checking each other out. We just went for it. And the letters describe, the love missives describe, without us changing a word of it, exactly what we experienced in our love life.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to many of us is that not only do we not know what to expect, but we won't go in vulnerable. We won't go in authentic. We won't go in willing and ready to divulge ourselves. So we set up the relationship to follow from square one, because we're not willing to do those things. And it takes immense bravery to do those things.
Mm-hmm.
So many people who think they want a loving relationship simply do not, because they're not yet ready in their lives to be that vulnerable.
And you emphasize vulnerability a lot in the book. I think if I were to do a little word count, a little word map, I swear it's probably in there like 300 times, which I think was one of your big lessons from this relationship. But tell us what vulnerability means for you and why it's so important and why it's some of the pre-work that we have to do.
In order to really come into a relationship without the lack you were speaking of, I'm not feeling totally whole. Will you love me? I'm not feeling like a sensuous, beautiful woman. Will you love me? I'm not feeling like a man who's enough. Will you tell me I'm enough? Will you show me that I'm enough? When we go in expecting the other person to deliver those things, it's a big problem. And it's a big problem because they can't do it. It's not that they wouldn't want to do it, but we're not wired that way. We become a bucket that they fill up with all the love that they have for us, but there's a hole in our bucket, and it comes out the other side. So part of being vulnerable is to tell yourself the truth about whether you love yourself or not. Are you making decisions in your life that are self-loving decisions? Your best friend can tell you whether you love yourself. They'll have no question at all.
Right.
If you know you love yourself, it is on that platform which you then go into a relationship. The epiphany I had, the shifting paradigms, in the first week of going into my relationship with Adam, my mentor and I had a 2-day intensive set aside, meaning I worked with my mentor all day by myself, just my mentor and myself. At the end of those 2 days, I was a different woman. I had restructured a good part of my beliefs about love. What I wanted in a relationship was different. The type of man I wanted was different. And here was poor Adam stuck with going into a relationship with a woman who was one way, and 2 days later is a different way. So he had a lot of thought processes that he needed to do. Is, are you who I want to be with now? Because you changed so much. And do I think I can be the type of man you want?
Right.
Very important questions.
Yeah. And so when you went through your own kind of self-assessment on where I'm vulnerable, what did you find? And what did you, as examples of what we may find when we kind of dig into ourselves, or even what you found as a couple therapists, are where we're generally feel a lack and that we want someone else to fill?
Right. For me, that lack was demonstrated by a belief I had that no matter how hard I tried or how much I was, it wasn't that I wouldn't be loved, it's that I wouldn't be loved the way I wanted to be loved. Until I accessed my subconscious mind and rewrote that order, that was always what was going to happen, because our subconscious mind works like this. It has 2 roles. The first role is to store all information we've ever been exposed to, but the role we really care about is that make sure our belief systems are honored. Most of our belief systems are planted into us by us before we are 7. And a belief, a thought, and a feeling becomes a belief when it has immense focus, immense emotion, and we go, oh, that's how it works. And then our subconscious mind, from that moment on, begins to bring us a life that reflects that. So if you're not vulnerable enough to yourself to do the work, to know what beliefs are in there, you're stuck with what your kid put in you for the rest of your life, because no amount of therapy, no amount of insight will change that. You literally have to change.
So your hardwired belief, maybe at the age of 7, who knows when it started, was the belief of, I can't be loved the way I want to be loved. And so had you walked into the relationship as you did, 2 days prior, before meeting Adam, you would have played out that whole dynamic, right? You would have tried to have him fill that hole of, why don't you love me the way that I want to be loved, versus, is that, you're nodding your head, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I would have tried to repackage myself, because isn't that what they teach us in all the dating books and all the dating classes? Package yourself right, say the right things, understand what men want, understand what women want. Nowhere in there is understand what you want. Nowhere in there is understand what you really want, because we think we know what we really want because we're so busy filling the holes. We're such Swiss cheese. Right. We have so many holes in us that we don't yet know how to fill for ourselves. The minute we have the confidence that we can fill them for ourselves and we will then stop looking for someone else to do it for us. And for me, because I've been changing my beliefs over many years now, my initial belief was love hurts. So no matter what relationship I was in, it always ended up hurting. That's how powerful my subconscious mind is and how powerful yours is.
Right.
And I thought I had evolved going in heart first in my relationship with Adam to the point where I no longer believe love hurts. I didn't know, because I hadn't yet ferreted it out, that I had this other little nasty belief hanging in there, which means no matter what he did, he would always end up feeling not enough. And so Adam would have been destroyed by me repackaging myself so he would love me, because if I go to all this work to repackage myself and you still don't love me the way I want to be loved, there's something wrong with you. And I would have made sure he knew that.
Right.
Now, I wouldn't have been cruel about it, but my energy would have made sure. And how many women really think their guy isn't enough for them, and they think the man doesn't know it? Sure he does.
Yeah, so it's this kind of dance where we say, gosh, we really want to find this guy because we need to get the love that we want it in the way that we want it. So I need to actually make myself perfect and, get Botox and, get my hair all done. And that's what I assume what you mean by repackaging ourselves. So that,
Absolutely.
Someone like Adam would love me. And then, the poor guy Adam, he's not, you're kind of doomed almost to the get-go, because what's going to happen is the same thing is going to happen all over again, where you're trying to get loved in the way that you want. He can't deliver because you haven't even articulated to yourself what that means.
That's correct. And we think we do. Women are taught, literally taught. They have competitions with girlfriends. Sit down and write what your ideal man looks like. What woman hasn't done that?
Yeah.
The problem is that that's not what brings the man in. What brings the man in is your list of how you want to feel when you're with him. So if, like me, you believe that love hurts, or if you believe men betray, women make me feel not enough, if you have beliefs like that, your subconscious mind is so powerful, it will always see that happens. So no matter how you try to work yourself around and put yourself in different packages, buy new clothes, redo your hair, lose weight, gain weight, whatever it is you think you need, that's not what will work. And until we stop doing what doesn't work, we won't have the love of our lives.
Right. So these are a set of questions that I pulled from the internet, or what people typically ask, like, what is wrong with me? It doesn't seem like there's something wrong with you, but it sounds like what could help is to figure out what these subconscious beliefs are, or why can't I find the love of my life? Could be that you have these subconscious beliefs that are packaged in there that you don't recognize that you have.
It's just a little bit more powerful than you could. You absolutely do.
Yeah.
You absolutely have beliefs in your life that don't work. The vast majority of your beliefs do work for you. How we know that is you're not crazy in an asylum somewhere.
Right.
Or you're not sitting in the corner drooling. Or you're not homeless. So most of your beliefs work for you.
Yeah.
The pain is for the ones that don't.
Right.
So what the second half of Get Love, How to Transform Your Love Life does for you is you and I sit down together, hand in hand, we're best friends, and we walk you through the 4 steps. Acknowledge, what do you know you want to change? For me, it was, no matter how hard I try, I'm never going to be loved the way I wanted. Then I needed to figure out, why did I do that? I'm a smart woman. You're a smart woman.
Right.
Woman, what is it that makes us continue behavioral patterns that hurts us? Well, the first answer to that question is your belief will never let you change it until you change it.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the why I need to forgive? And what the second part of the 4-step process does is it has you answer 7 questions that will help you really understand, oh, that's why I did it. And then you can do the 4th step, which is to forgive yourself, because the 4th step, the 3rd step, forgiveness, is the step that is actually the linchpin. If you can't forgive yourself for all the lost opportunities, for the woman or the man that you missed, for the pain you've caused because of those beliefs, you're going to be stuck there forever. Okay. But if you can really heal the wounded one by forgiving it, then you can do the 4th step, which is change.
Yeah, so let's actually take your own personal experience. So you recognize, the first one is acknowledge, right? Help me remember. The first one is acknowledge. You acknowledge, like, okay, I'm trying to have some guy basically give me the love in the way that I want it. Okay?
Right.
So that was what you acknowledged. And then what was the second step? Then after acknowledge is
is the first one is to acknowledge this, is to recognize. The first one is recognize. What is it I want to change? The second one is acknowledge.
Right.
And there are 7 questions that you ask yourself. What are you trying to avoid by hanging out in this belief? And then what righteous feeling are you hanging on to? Who do you want to blame? What does the divine have to promise you or guarantee before you're going to risk change? How much are you enjoying your self-pity because you told the same story about your broken heart on infinitum?
Right.
And if it's how you get your intention in the world, you're never letting that go. How important does this belief make you? And finally, why are you so tenaciously clinging to the past? Once you know and actually write that out, and don't try to do it alone, sit down and talk to a friend, get a book group together, join me on my website. We're going to do a webinar that walks us through all this. Whatever is true for you, do the second step. Why? And then you can do the third step is this wounded creature in you who tried so hard. We can forgive that why. We might not like what we did, but we can forgive the why of it. And then we can access our subconscious mind, which is change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what's interesting? If I think about my serious relationships that I've been through throughout my life, the first couple of ones, I mean, I went through this whole process where I went in broken, hoping that that person would, you know, help me figure out something about love, I think. And I did recognize. And I walked away from the relationship going, I'm never doing that again. And then I walked into the second relationship and had another set of broken things within myself that I then tried to heal. And then I thought, I will never do that again. I didn't go through this process, but I think maybe at some conscious level and maybe a combination of conscious and unconscious. I don't, because it's taken me, I can actually look back and say, okay, first guy dated because, I thought material things were important. He had a lot of material things. So that was the first thing I really cared about, and I was trying to explore how important that was. Second guy, he was also someone who was really material, but had all these titles and things. And so I was trying to figure out, is that important to me? But he was so torturous about how he judged me and how I was inadequate all the time. And I thought, I'm never doing that again. And then the third guy, I was like, if you think you're going to judge me, I'm not even going there. Like, you know, by the time the third guy came along, then it was about being patient and really, but like each person was kind of a little love lesson nugget as I moved on and on and on. But
each one was a way that you were learning to love yourself more. You didn't need for him to be rich and so you could feel important. You felt important for yourself. You didn't need titles because you felt as if you were significant for yourself. Each one, you were shifting your image inside yourself. Congratulations.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because my poor husband now, when he met me, I was like, listen, here's the story. You know, I'm interested in getting married. I don't know if you are or not, but like, we just need to like check in every now and then and say if it's working for us or not, because let's be real here. Neither of us are spring chickens and we got to know. That's one. Second, I said, I was such a pain in the butt. I'm surprised that he even stayed with me. I said, I know that we're going to go visit your grandfather, and he's really important. And I know, and I guess I need to know right away if you're going to pull this, my grandfather doesn't like you and blah, 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 blah. Because what I'm telling you right now is I'm not going to deal with it. If you're going to have that, if he's going to have that kind of influence over you, I'm out of here now. Because I'm not going to have a family that kind of does that. And, you know, I mean, it's just, but it was one of those things that, you know, all those lessons that you learned along the way that you bring into your next relationship and then set a foundation of like, I knew what I wanted, right? So I could say what I wanted. You know, my husband could have given me the finger and said, you're crazy, I'm out of here. But at the same time, I mean, you state what you want, which is part of the problem because like you said, we try to repackage ourselves and really clearly state what's important to us.
I think it's really important that we say what's important to us, and I think something else is really important as well, and that is you were stating things that would cause you pain. If your grandfather is going to judge me and you're going to listen to him, I'm going to be in pain a lot. So you didn't say it quite that way, but my guess is your husband's pretty intuitive and he understood.
Yeah.
He knew you were going to say it that way, that he was preventing you from being in pain.
Right.
And so each relationship that we were in pain, the subsequent relationship we're trying to get so it doesn't set up the pain any longer.
Right. I think that's true. All right, so other questions that people seem to talk about is what happens? What should I do if my partner doesn't want to work with me on the relationship? And that happened with you and Adam, right? I mean, he kind of wanted. I mean, I don't know. I'm just reading the letters.
Yes.
But my sense is that he wanted to do work, but he didn't really want to do some of the deeper work that would have brought him to the same place that you wanted him to be, right? He couldn't go there. And what does one do when they're with a partner, they're going through changes, that partner is not willing to go through those changes? Would you have done it any differently than you would have, and what did you learn from that experience?
Okay, the first question. Adam made a decision that for him, the depth of work that would have been required to create the type of relationship we both wanted, he wasn't ready to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrestled with himself, and he threw himself against the wall and got up and wrestled with himself again and decided that that wasn't for him.
Mm-hmm.
Then I had to decide, was I willing to have a relationship with anything less than what I wanted? And the answer was no, I didn't. Adam wasn't wrong. That wasn't right for him any longer, but it was right for me. And after a 2-day intensive with my mentor, that's who I was. And poor Adam had to decide, did he want to be with that woman who lived in that paradigm of love? And he had to answer that question for himself. And he just didn't throw up his hands and say, I'm done. He really looked. And it wasn't worth the work for him. Whether he'll ever do that work, I don't know. But it wasn't for him then.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than make Adam wrong, rather than destroy ourselves, rather than try to get from Adam what I didn't have, see, those days were over. I was totally happy. And would I have been happy with Adam? You bet. Would I love to have the relationship grow to where I wanted it to grow? You bet. But for the first time, it didn't destroy me because I loved myself. I'm not talking about narcissism or better than. I'm talking about truly loved myself and certainly loved Adam enough to let him do what he needed to do.
Yeah.
And if the other person doesn't want to do the work, then you have to decide, is the relationship good enough for me? Not is he good enough for me? Is the relationship good enough for me? Meaning, does it give me what I want? Don't make a list of what you want the man to be. Make a list of how you want to feel when you're with the man or the woman.
Yeah.
That's the secret.
Yeah, actually, I think that is a key difference between how most people handle it. They're like, here are the pros, here are the cons. Like, how many pros and cons are there? Can I deal with him? Versus, I think the key aspect is, how am I relating to him? Am I feeling good about the relationship and how we're connecting? That's a huge thing. If when you get together with him, you're like, you know, be different. You know, that's like, well, you can either change yourself and try to change that relationship to it, or you can also say, I don't want to change the way I'm relating to this person, which is what I think you said on the inside, right? You said, or you made a conscious decision that said, yeah, I know that there's nothing about you, but I don't want to relate in this particular way with you.
Right. It wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah.
And how I felt when I was with him, when he was doubting himself, when he didn't think he wanted to join me in this new paradigm of love, that's not what I wanted. I didn't want to spend my lifetime trying to convince a man he was enough for me.
Yeah.
So you don't, it's not just how you relate, it's how do you feel. And I don't mean you having a bad day. I mean, how do you feel when you're with this person? If you don't feel better than you feel when you are just loving yourself, then maybe you better take a look at that. But I caution to say, if you're going in wanting him or her to feel you, you've already put the dead nail into the coffin.
Right.
It will never work.
Right. Yeah. So the questions that you see oftentimes is, what should I do if my partner doesn't want to work with me on a relationship? I mean, there's not a lot you can do, right? There really isn't. What happens when I love my partner more than he or she loves me? I mean, what can you do?
Well, first of all, I would check out, do I receive the love they send me? Receiving is much harder than loving. And
That's
I would
true.
really look to, do they love you less, or do they love you in the way they interpret as loving and you're missing it? I would have a conversation.
That's an
I would have a
interesting idea.
conversation. It might be they love you less and you have to decide. I love you 100% and he loves me 50%. There is an interesting mathematical equation about how relationships die very quickly. I give you 100%, you can only receive 97%. So you now only have 97% to give me back. You give me 90%, and let's say I can only receive 80%. So now I only have 80% to give you back, and down it spirals until there's nothing left.
Right.
Receiving is a much harder skill than giving.
Right. Well, part of it in the receiving is you have to understand that it's even being sent, right? Which is, right,
Yes.
the case that you talked about, you're sending at 100%, but I'm only receiving at 80% because I don't acknowledge maybe the 20% that you're actually sending that I don't get. Like, I don't understand how that's love.
How that works is maybe I have fears in me that being vulnerable enough to let that person love me 100% isn't safe. Or I have secret beliefs that I don't deserve this, so I'm only going to take 80%. That's not too bad. I will take 80%. I'm doing pretty good. Receiving depends upon how we're wired, not how they're sending. Now, I hasten to say, if you're in an unhappy and unhealthy relationship where you're being abused on any level, that's not what this discussion is about. This discussion is about healthy people in healthy relationships.
Yeah, my husband has this thing that seriously annoys him. He'll say, "You look really cute today." I'm like, "What? I didn't look cute yesterday?"
Yeah, it's the today that bothers him, right?
Yeah, he's like, "What the heck? Where did that come from? Why can't you just receive, at 100% the love that I just gave you, which is that you look cute today?
Exactly.
That's yours." And I'm like,
"That's
okay.
Right.
That's totally
ours.
fair. To me, that's an example of giving it 100% and not really receiving the full.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
I love that. So the commit, why does my partner not want to commit? What do I do? I think it's really what I'm hearing you say is go on the inside and figure out what you want to do.
That's right.
And how you're feeling.
Right.
How do you know if you should break up or get divorced? I don't know, because, there was a point in your book at Love where you have to decide. Like, each of you reach a pivot point where you have to decide. Was it just about the way that you felt that was your decision point, or was there something else?
Because I had had 30 years of experience about learning about love, because I've had two mentors, one for 35 years and one for 7 years, and I talked to one or the other almost every week of my life.
Wow.
I have had vast amount of experience of learning and growing and changing and falling on my face and getting back up. And Adam did not. Adam spent the world in high-level securities.
Yes.
He did not have that let's take a look at myself background. So I was particularly patient with that because it wasn't fair to compare me to him.
Right.
And how fast he was moving. It just wasn't fair.
Right.
So I was particularly patient. But when Adam said, I don't want to go there, that was it. I no longer tried to talk someone into being with me. He already knew who I was. He knew the wonder that I brought into his life. He just wasn't willing to risk it at that time.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating that I never made that connection until now, the metaphor of him being in high security. Oh my gosh. There's a story within a story of metaphors. Okay. Can I have a life after love? So after this experience, what was it like for you? Because you really, in reading your book at Love, you really went there. And you really became, as you said, very, very vulnerable. Like, here's who I am, here's what I want. And I'm like giving you everything. Which must have really hurt. At the end, I was just like, oh my God, this just must be so much heartbreak. How did you start to want to go back into a relationship? Or have you? Or what happened afterwards?
I mourned, I cried, I got angry, I got depressed, and I moved through it. And I walked through with my mentor one step at a time. See, we have this lie we tell ourselves that the longer the pain of getting over a relationship lasts, the deeper we loved. That's hogwash. With help, you can walk through mourning in a fairly short period of time, down to the roots of your toes, hurt, angry, resentful, whatever the feeling is, and come out the other side.
Yeah.
So I came out the other side with a real gift, and that is I loved myself more than I'd ever done before. Someone asked me the other day, so are you in love? And the answer is, yeah, I'm in love with myself.
Yeah.
And I don't mean in a narcissistic way. I mean, I truly love the woman I've crafted myself to be.
Yeah.
Do I want to, or am I ready for another relationship? I am so involved with life and loving my life that the answer is sure. If it pops in, am I out there looking, promoting, networking for a relationship? Not at all.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, so we have a couple more minutes left. Do you have time to answer a couple more questions? Okay. So there's a whole bunch of questions, and I think that, again, they relate to some of the stories that were played out, or they're not stories, or life experiences that you played out in Get Love. And I think it's, how do you know that you are in love? Because the last part of the book talks about, a conversation that you're having with Adam about how does one know that they're in love, and how does one not know that they're in love? And what did you learn from that experience with Adam?
I think that some people cannot admit that they're in love because the vulnerability that love demands is too big to risk. So you might be with someone who loves you.
It's 2 o'clock.
But they can't do anything about that because it hurts them. And so the hurt is not worth the risk of love. So they don't.
Right. It's too painful to really love someone, so I'm not going to.
It's too painful to not love yourself in a way that you can receive someone else's love.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. Say that again. It's too painful to not love yourself, which is perhaps what was happening, right? It's
right.
when we can't really love ourselves that's painful, and as a result we don't receive the love that the other person is giving us.
That's right. Or attract a person who can give it to us. If we don't love ourselves, the chances are very high we will not attract someone who will love us.
Oh, right. Yeah, we attract someone who's unavailable.
And on some level or another, absolutely.
Okay, so basically, how do you know if he loves me, she loves me? How do you know if your love is real? How would you answer that? It's almost like you would have to do, if I'm understand your answer before, is that you'd almost have to, if you're whole and you feel love, then that's love.
There are questions you can ask yourself, and that is, when I'm with this person, do I feel safe? Do I feel pleasure? Do I feel like I belong? Do I feel I have a safe place to be giving and receiving? You ask yourself those questions, and if those questions are yes, then there is love there. The depth and breadth of it will depend upon how the two of you want to exchange this beautiful resonance called love.
Right. Yeah, that's true. So if you have, those are kind of like the bare minimums.
Yes.
That you want to have.
Right. If you're always afraid, always trying to prove yourself, never being able to be authentic, never being able to be vulnerable, worried about whether or not you are a perfect package, then whatever you're doing is something other than love.
It's not funny because we come up with these checklists. I used
to
have a checklist. He has to be funny, he has to be smart, And it's really, when it comes right down to it, when by the time I married my husband, it was the checklist that you just gave. Because you realize after dating all these other people, no, this is what really matters in a healthy, decent relationship.
Right.
That was the best checklist ever. Okay, so talk about passion, or talk about vulnerability. We've talked a little bit about that, but I want vulnerability, humility, and there's one other that you talk about in your book. What is it?
Authenticity,
Intimacy.
humility. Yeah. Right.
Okay, yeah, tell us about those and why they're important.
In order for your relationship to last, you must have intimacy. Close, open, tender, trusting, knowing, caring, and loving. Without those qualities, which are the characteristics of intimacy, your love will never last, because love is like this huge tide. It is consistent. It's not constant. Let's use the metaphor of the ocean. When you're standing at the shore, the ocean is there. It is consistent. But it is not constant. The wave doesn't come and hit you. A wave comes and then it goes out. And then it comes and it goes out. And love is like that. It comes and your biochemistry changes and everything is right in the world. And then one day you're sitting across the kitchen table from them and you're going, what am I doing here?
Right.
Because the tide of love is out.
Right.
What holds you in place during that time is intimacy. That's your best friend across the table from there. And yeah, you don't love them today, and you truly might not. But you like them. You're close to them. You're intimate with them. And so when love comes back in, then you have both love and intimacy. But it is the intimacy that glues the relationship together. I spoke with an author who wrote a book about divorce, and she said that the vast majority of people thought they ended the relationship way too soon because the tide of love was out, and no one taught them about love, so they didn't know the tide would come back in.
Yeah. Okay. So intimacy is one part. What about humility and vulnerability?
Humility is allowing every day to be new. So he does something one way, she does something one way that drives you out of your mind. It's called the 70-30 rule. 70% of the time you think it's really wonderful, and 30% you want to kill them for it.
Right.
Humility is a little beyond that. They do something. They won't talk about their feelings. She never makes me feel like I'm enough. She never tells me, gives me points for the things I do in the world. Mm-hmm. And so they're not loving you the way you would like them to love you. Mm-hmm. If you're humble, you give them the space to change and to love you the way you want to be loved. And you will love them the way they want to be loved because you allow the space for change. Oh, he's always going to be that way, and I just have to live with it. If you hold that, then he will be. You're your own self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. And vulnerability, you have to risk being hurt to be loved.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. I remember when, with my current husband, with my husband, I said to him, I've never said I love you first, and I'm just going to go right out and say it. And I don't know why, but I just feel like I have to because I want to be vulnerable with you, knowing that you may not return it, and it may not even be ready for you, and that's okay, whatever you're feeling, but I am in love with you, which is the very first time that I did that, and I think that was a vulnerable moment for me, for sure.
It was a beautiful moment for you. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. It was hard to do, because I'm someone who comes from a very closed background, so that was a pretty huge thing. So when you say I love you, do you ever have a feeling like, when is it too soon or too late to say it? Or when is it too soon to say I love you? There's all these posts. When is it too soon? How do you say I love you? What do you do? What if it's not returned?
If you love them and you love yourself, you say it whenever it occurs to you, whenever you feel it. If you're saying I love you so they'll love you back to fill the holes in you, then you better wait till you love yourself. But the foundation of self-love, if you really, truly love yourself, you treat yourself with gentleness and kindness each and every day. The decisions you make are self-loving and not self-abusing. If you don't have these conversations in your head that I'm not enough, no one will ever love me. If you truly love yourself, the minute you love someone else, you open your mouth and you say it.
I love it. All right, we have Kimberly Heart talking about her book, Get Love. Thank you so much. Tell us about your website to people, and it sounds like you do seminars too, right? Tell us a little bit about what you offer.
www.getlove. You'll have all the information you need, getlove.com. And we are putting together a webinar, which will happen in the next 3 weeks, so that when you get to the second half of the book, when you get to the love letters and you get to the point, now I have to do the homework, come do it with me. We'll walk it together.
Yeah, and I think that will be huge, actually, because it's hard to just sit there and do it through a workshop.
Absolutely. Come and do it with me. It'll be more fun.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show, and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below, or to subscribe to the show, or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.